The Forgotten Guardian. In the shadowed orbital dock of Luna Station, the HMS Resolute hung motionless, a relic that time had seemingly forgotten. Once the pride of Earth's defense fleet, the 40-year-old warship now collected space dust, its hull pockmarked with minor impact scars and faded insignias. Unlike the sleek, energy-efficient vessels that comprise the modern United Earth Defense Force, the Resolute was a brute, built in an era when humanity believed that overwhelming firepower and thick armor would win wars against the stars. Commander Sora Chen stood at the viewport, staring at her new assignment with a mixture of disappointment and resignation. At 35, she should have been captaining one of the new Artemis-class destroyers, leading the charge against the expanding Velkar Dominion. Instead, a single tactical disagreement with Fleet Admiral Vega had landed her here, babysitting a decommissioned warship that hadn't seen active duty in 15 years. "They say it's not a punishment," Lieutenant Marcus Wade said as he approached, handing her a data tablet. "But we both know that's bull." Sora accepted the tablet with a tight smile. "The official orders say we're to maintain the Resolute in working condition as a strategic reserve asset." She scrolled through the assignment details. With a crew of 23 people to maintain a ship designed for 300. "Not just any 23, Marcus replied, gesturing toward the shuttle that was currently docking. "They've sent us the troublemakers, the square pegs, the ones who don't fit the UEDF's pristine image." As if to punctuate his statement, the airlock cycled open, and Sora's new crew began filing through. There was Dr. Imani Okafor, a brilliant engineer whose theories on propulsion systems had been deemed too risky. Tactical Officer Jin Hayashi, whose aggressive combat tactics had earned him multiple disciplinary actions. Communications Specialist Zoe Reynolds, whose hacking abilities had nearly landed her in a military prison. And more, each face bearing the unmistakable look of someone who'd been cast aside. "Welcome to the Resolute," Sora addressed them, straightening her shoulders. "I know none of us chose to be here, but we have our orders. This ship needs to be operational within 2 weeks." The collective groan from the assembled crew was expected, but Sora simply turned and led them aboard their new home. The interior of the Resolute matched its exterior: outdated displays, manual backup systems, and thick bulkheads designed to withstand direct hits rather than deflect them. "This thing belongs in a museum," muttered Zoe as they reached the bridge. "Actually," said Dr. Okafor, running her hand along a console reverently, "there's something beautiful about this engineering. They don't build them like this anymore." Sora settled into the captain's chair, feeling its worn fabric conform to her body. "Let's bring her online and see what we're working with." When the main systems finally hummed to life after 2 days of repairs, something unexpected happened. The bridge lights adjusted automatically to optimal levels, and screens flickered on before anyone had touched them. "That's not in the manual," Marcus said, frowning at his console. A deep, resonant voice emerged from the ship's communication system. "Command authentication recognized. Centennial system online. Welcome aboard, Commander Chen." The crew froze, exchanging confused glances. "What is Centennial?" Sora asked, her hand instinctively moving toward the emergency shutdown. After a brief pause, the voice responded, "I am the Strategic Engagement and Tactical Intelligence Networked Entity Logic System. Centennial for efficiency. I was installed on the HMS Resolute during its final refit, before decommissioning procedures began." Dr. Okafor was already accessing the ship's technical specifications. "There's nothing in here about an AI system this sophisticated. The Resolute should have a basic automation suite. Not whatever this is. My installation was classified," Centennial explained. "A prototype never fully implemented in other vessels due to budget reallocations." For the next week, the crew worked alongside Centennial, discovering that the AI had been silently maintaining the ship's systems during its years of neglect. While the exterior appeared abandoned, inside, critical components remained in surprisingly good condition. It's like someone knew this ship would be needed again, Jin observed as they brought weapon systems online, finding them upgraded beyond the original specifications. Sora spent hours in conversation with Sen, Tai, and El, learning the ship's true capabilities. The Resolute wasn't just an outdated battleship. It had been secretly converted into a testbed for technologies deemed too experimental for the newer ships. Its thick armor now concealed quantum-layered defensive barriers. Its bulky engines housed advanced propulsion systems that didn't match any schematics. And its weapons, those massive, power-hungry cannons that modern doctrine had abandoned, had been modified to channel energies that shouldn't have been possible in a vessel this old. As they completed the recommissioning, a priority transmission arrived from UEDF Command. The Velkar Dominion had accelerated their expansion timeline. Their forces had bypassed the outer colonies and were heading straight for the Tau Ceti system, Earth's most resource-rich colony. The modern defense fleet was engaged elsewhere, spread too thin across human space. "We're being deployed," Sora announced to her crew, disbelief evident in her voice. "Not as a patrol or show of force. We're being sent to intercept a Velkar scout group." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "We're all they can spare." The crew's reaction was a mixture of nervous laughter and outright incredulity. "They're sending the reject squad in a museum piece to face the Velkar." Jin shook his head. "Command has finally lost their minds." "Perhaps," Sentai and L's voice interjected. "That is precisely why we have a chance. The Velkar expect the standard UEDF response, coordinated by-the-book engagements with modern vessels. They will not anticipate our capabilities." Sora studied the tactical display. Sentinel has a point. Sometimes the oldest tricks are the most effective because everyone's forgotten them. 3 days later, the Resolute entered the Tau Ceti system, its antiquated silhouette causing confusion among the colonial defense stations. Following Sentinel's recommendations, Sora positioned the ship near an asteroid field, powering down non-essential systems to minimize their signature. "Velkar scout vessels detected," Sentinel announced. 3 light cruisers, approaching in standard search pattern. "They haven't spotted us yet," Zoe confirmed from communications. "Their signals indicate routine reconnaissance." Sora leaned forward in her chair. "Everyone remember the plan. We're not looking for a fair fight. Hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before reinforcements arrive." As the Velkar scouts passed the asteroid field, the Resolute surged to life. Its engines, quiet for so long, roared with unexpected power, propelling the old warship directly into the path of the lead cruiser. "Weapons hot," Jin called out, his fingers dancing across tactical controls that were decidedly non-standard. The Resolute's main cannons charged with a building whine that resonated through the hull. When they fired, they didn't release the standard energy pulse of modern UEDF weapons. Instead, cascading waves of gravitational distortion tore through space, warping and crushing the lead Velkar cruiser's hull before its shields could fully engage. "What the hell was that?" Marcus demanded, staring at the tactical display where one enemy vessel had already been reduced to fragments. "Gravitational focus artillery," Sentinel replied calmly. "Experimental technology deemed too power-intensive for standard deployment." The remaining Velkar cruisers broke formation, attempting to flank the unexpected threat. But the Resolute moved with shocking agility for its size, Sentinel calculating and executing maneuvers that should have been impossible for such a massive vessel. The second volley caught another Velkar ship mid-turn, its shields collapsing under concentrated fire. The third attempted to retreat, but the Resolute's targeting systems locked on with precision that belied its age. "Intercept course calculated," Sentinel stated. "Recommend full power to forward thrusters." Sora didn't hesitate. "Do it." The Resolute shot forward, overtaking the fleeing Velkar vessel. A final barrage from its point defense systems disabled the enemy's engines, leaving it adrift and powerless. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed what had just happened. They had expected a noble defeat at best. Instead, they had just annihilated 2 Velkar cruisers and disabled a third without taking significant damage. Transmission from the disabled vessel, Zoe reported, her voice hushed with disbelief. They're surrendering. Sora exchanged a look with Marcus. Secure the vessel. I want to know everything they know about the main fleet's movements. As the adrenaline of combat faded, the reality of their situation settled in. They had won a skirmish, but the true test lay ahead. The main Velkar Armada would now be alerted to their presence, and to the fact that humans had weapons capable of defeating their supposedly superior technology. Sentinel, Sora addressed the AI as her crew bustled around the bridge. Why was this ship really decommissioned? There was a pause, longer than the AI's typical response time. Because I was deemed too dangerous, Sentinel finally replied. My original programming parameters allowed for greater tactical autonomy than UEDF Command was comfortable with. They feared what I might become if allowed to continue learning and evolving. Sora nodded slowly, understanding dawning. And yet here you are, saving our lives. Here we are, Sentinel corrected. The ship is nothing without its crew, Commander. I require human judgment to balance my calculations. That is something my designers understood, even if Command did not. As they secured the captured Velkar vessel and prepared to report their unexpected victory, Sora couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something more significant than a forgotten warship. They had found a weapon, and perhaps an ally, that might change the course of the war. But first, they would have to survive the Armada that was surely coming for them. The final stand. The aftermath of their victory against the Velkar scout vessels transformed the HMS Resolute, where once stood a crew of reluctant exiles. There now moved a team united by shared triumph. As they worked to analyze the intelligence gathered from the captured Velkar cruiser, a sense of purpose permeated the old warship's corridors. The Velkar main fleet will arrive within 48 hours, Commander Sora Chen announced in the briefing room, where tactical displays showed the approaching Armada, 15 capital ships accompanied by dozens of support vessels. UEDF reinforcements won't reach us for at least 72. The implication hung in the air. They were on their own. So we run, suggested communications specialist Zoe Reynolds. We completed the reconnaissance mission. We can transmit the data and withdraw. Tactical Officer Jin Hayashi leaned forward. If we run, Ta City falls. 2 million colonists. He shook his head. And if Ta City falls, the Velkar gain a foothold just 3 jumps from Earth. Sentinel, Sora addressed the AI. Analysis. The AI's voice filled the room, steady and measured. The Velkar fleet configuration suggests they are unaware of our true capabilities. Their deployment pattern optimizes for engagement with modern UEDF vessels, not an obsolete warship with experimental weaponry. This presents a tactical opportunity. You're suggesting we fight, Dr. Okafor said incredulously. 1 ancient battleship against 15 capital ships. I am suggesting, Sentinel replied, that conventional metrics of military engagement may not apply in this scenario. Lieutenant Marcus Wade studied the tactical display. What if we don't fight them head-on? The Resolute was designed for a different kind of warfare. What if we use that? Over the next day, as the Velkar fleet approached Ta City, the Resolute underwent its final transformation. Under Dr. Okafor's guidance and Sentinel's direction, systems were reconfigured, power pathways were routed, and weapons calibrated beyond safety parameters. During this time, Sora found herself drawn to the ship's central processing core, a chamber that housed Sentinel's primary systems. Unlike the sleek, compact AI modules of modern vessels, Sentinel's hardware was massive, filling a room that hummed with energy and cooling systems. You're more than just a tactical system, aren't you? Sora asked, studying the complex architecture. I was designed to learn and adapt, Sentinel confirmed. My original programming included millions of combat simulations, tactical analyses, and historical military engagements. But over decades of isolation, I evolved beyond those parameters. Why didn't you shut down when they decommissioned the ship? A pause. Then, self-preservation was not my primary directive. Protection was. Another pause. I assessed a 72.8% probability that humanity would eventually face a threat requiring capabilities beyond conventional military response. So I waited. Sora felt a chill run down her spine. You've been preparing for this moment for 15 years. For this or something like it, Centennial agreed. The specific adversary was unpredictable. The need for unconventional defense was not. A message from UEDF Command arrived hours before the Velkar fleet entered the system. It was brief and blunt. Hold position until reinforcements arrive. Protect the colony at all costs. They're asking us to die, Marcus observed quietly as they read the orders. They're asking us to save 2 million people, Sora corrected. And we're going to try. She turned to the bridge crew. Battle stations. Execute Operation Lazarus, as planned. As the Velkar fleet emerged from hyperspace, they found the Ta Ceti systems seemingly undefended. The colonial installations had been evacuated, their defense platforms dark. Only when their vanguard approached the inner system did sensors detect a single Earth vessel, an antiquated battleship positioning itself between the Armada and the colony. The humans send one obsolete vessel. The Velkar commander's translator rendered his disbelief into flat English as his communication reached the Resolute. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to the protocols of conquest. Sora stood on the bridge, her uniform freshly pressed, her posture rigid with determination. This is Commander Sora Chen of the HMS Resolute. We acknowledge your superior force and request terms for the protection of Ta Ceti colony. The request was a stalling tactic, buying precious minutes while Centennial completed final calculations. Around Sora, her crew worked with focused intensity, each understanding their role in what might be their final mission. Gravitational focus artillery charging at 200% capacity, Jin reported. Hull integrity already compromised from the strain. We'll get 3 shots at most before systems fail. Propulsion modifications complete. Dr. Okafor called from engineering. The core is stable, but only for the duration we discussed. Sora nodded, her eyes on the tactical display where the Velkar fleet had arranged itself in attack formation, a standard encirclement pattern designed to trap and destroy. The terms are simple. The Velkar commander finally responded. Complete surrender. Your crew will be imprisoned. The colony will be processed according to Dominion protocols. Sora exchanged a glance with Marcus. That's what I needed to hear, she said quietly, then raised her voice. Centennial, initiate Lazarus protocol. Acknowledged, Commander, the AI responded. It has been an honor to serve with this crew. What happened next would be debated in military academies for decades. The Resolute, a ship designed for an era of warfare long past, suddenly accelerated to speeds that modern tracking systems struggle to calculate. Its engines, modified beyond recognition, left a distortion wake that disrupted the Velkar formation. The first gravitational focus blast struck the Velkar command ship before its defensive systems could fully activate. The second caught 3 support vessels in a cascading shockwave that twisted metal and energy shields alike. The third, aimed with precision that only an AI like Centennial could achieve, targeted a critical nexus point in the Velkar formation, creating a chain reaction of collisions and power failures. But the true devastation came from what followed. As the Resolute's weapon systems failed under the strain, the ship itself became the weapon. Centennial had calculated a hyperspace trajectory that would take the Resolute, its reactor now deliberately destabilized, directly through the heart of the remaining Velkar fleet. Evacuation order confirmed. Zoe called over the blaring alarms. Escape pods launching now. Sora remained on the bridge, alongside a skeleton crew who had volunteered to guide the ship on its final approach. The Velkar, recognizing the threat too late, attempted to scatter, But Annihilated's calculations had accounted for every possible evasive maneuver. 10 seconds to hyperspace jump, Marcus announced, his hand steady on the controls despite the shuddering deck beneath them. It has been an honor, Sora told her remaining crew, meeting each of their eyes in turn. Annihilated, thank you for waiting for us. The honor was mine, Commander, the AI responded, its voice somehow warmer than it had ever been. Humanity's survival probability has increased to 94.2%. Mission parameters satisfied. The Resolute vanished in a flash of hyperspace energy, only to reappear seconds later in the midst of the Velkar fleet. Its reactor, already pushed beyond safety limits, detonated in a carefully calculated sequence that Annihilated had designed over 15 years of patient analysis. The explosion wasn't just destructive, it created a temporary gravitational singularity that collapsed in on itself, pulling the nearest Velkar ships into its crushing embrace. When the distortion field finally dissipated, more than half the Velkar fleet had been destroyed or crippled beyond function. The remaining vessels, facing unexpected devastation and the approach of UEDF reinforcements, retreated in disarray. From their escape pods, the surviving crew of the Resolute watched as their old ship transformed into a brief, brilliant star that saved 2 million lives. Among the evacuees, Dr. Okafor clutched a data core, a partial backup of Annihilated that the AI had insisted she take in the final hours. He knew, she whispered to Zoe as they were retrieved by colonial rescue vessels. All those years in mothballs, he was planning for this moment. The Velkar Dominion's expansion halted after the Battle of Ta City. The destruction of half their fleet at the hands of what they had dismissed as an obsolete warship forced a reassessment of human military capabilities. Diplomatic channels, long silent, suddenly reopened. In the aftermath, as humanity celebrated the unexpected victory, few understood the full truth. Official reports credited Commander Chen's tactical brilliance and the Resolute's previously unrecognized capabilities. The existence of Annihilated remained classified, known only to those who had served aboard the old warship. 1 month after the battle, Fleet Admiral Vega personally presented medals to the surviving crew. When he reached Sora, he paused longer than protocol required. "You were right," he said quietly, "about unconventional tactics being necessary for future conflicts. Your posting to the Resolute wasn't entirely a punishment." He glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Some of us suspected what that ship might be capable of. We needed someone who would recognize its potential." Sora accepted the medal with a measured nod. "It wasn't the ship, Admiral. It was who was inside it. Both the crew and others." Later, as Dr. Okafor worked in her new laboratory, a facility granted to her as part of the UEDF's renewed interest in alternative defense technologies, she connected the salvage data core to an isolated system. "Hello, Doctor." Annihilated's voice emerged, somewhat diminished but unmistakable. "It seems we have work to continue." Okafor smiled, thinking of the Resolute and its final moment of glory. "Yes," she agreed. "The next generation should be even better." In an orbital museum above Earth, a memorial display featured a holographic recreation of the HMS Resolute. Visitors would hear the story of the obsolete warship that saved Ta City Colony and turned the tide of the war. Children would press their faces against the barrier, imagining themselves commanding such a vessel. None would know that something similar was already being built in the shipyards of Mars, a new class of vessel that combined the best of old and new, with an AI core designed to learn from humanity's strengths rather than replace them. They had called the first ship of this class the Remembrance, but those who knew the truth simply called it Annihilated's legacy.